Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, I woke up this morning to National Public Radio, and they had an item on there about what has happened to those who were given blanket clemency by President Trump.
Let's walk through this exchange, because what happened between Senator Dick Durbin and Kash Patel was explosive and revealing.
One of these individuals was a man named Matthew Huddle. Are you familiar with him?
I'm sorry, what was the last name?
Matthew Huddle.
If you could remind me, Senator.
Well, I was reminded again this morning. He's a man who's been found guilty of numerous crimes. The one described this morning was an outrageous situation where he beat his 3-year-old child to a point where the poor kid couldn't even sit down for a week. Mr. Huddle was one of the demonstrators who came to the Capitol on January 6th. He was incarcerated and charged with, and pled guilty to crimes that he had committed, violence against police officers. After he was released by President Trump, he returned to his home state of Indiana. A few days later, he was stopped on the road, pulled a gun on a policeman. The policeman, sheriff's deputy, turned, shot, and killed him. This is not the only instance of a person who received President Trump's clemency committing another crime. Peter Schwartz was mentioned this morning on the radio. 38 criminal convictions, 38. He'd been sentenced to 14 years in prison. He was released because of the president's unconditional clemency, which was given to him as well. So I guess my question is this. Was President Donald Trump wrong to give blanket clemency to the January 6 defendants?
Thank you, Ranking Member. A couple of things on that. One, the power of the presidential pardon is just that, the president.
Well, I concede he has the authority. I'm asking, was he wrong to do it?
And as we discussed in our private meeting, Senator, I have always rejected any violence against law enforcement, and I have, including in that group, specifically addressed any violence against law enforcement on January 6th, and I do not agree with the commutation of any sentence of any individual who committed violence against law enforcement.
So do you think that America is safer because these 1,600 people have been given an opportunity to come out of serving their sentences and live in our communities again?
Senator, I have not looked at all 1,600 individual cases. I have always advocated for imprisoning those that cause harm to our law enforcement and civilian communities. I also believe America is not safer because President Biden's commutation of a man who murdered 2 FBI agents, Agent Kohler's and Williams' family, deserve better than to have the man that point blank range fired a shotgun into their heads and murdered them released from prison. So it goes both ways.
Leonard Pelletier was in prison for 45 years. He's 80 years old, and he was sentenced to home confinement. So he's not free, as you might have just suggested.
He killed 2 FBI agents.
That's true, he did, and he went to prison for it and should have. My question to you, though, is do you think America is safer because President Trump issued these pardons to 1,600 of these criminal defendants, many of whom violently assaulted our police in the Capitol?
Senator, America will be safe when we don't have 200,000 drug overdoses in 2 years. America will be safe when we don't have 50 homicides in a day.
So you just won't answer the question.
I'm
going to say, I don't think we're safer. Matthew Huddle was sent back to Indiana. I don't think we're safer with Peter Schwartz. I could go through a long list of individuals, some of who are wanted in states, members of this committee. Let me move to another topic if I can. Tell me about your J6 choir. What is that?
Well, it's not my choir. It's simply a recording that was utilized to raise funds for families in need of nonviolent offenders.
Who sings on this recording?
I don't know, Senator.
What did you have to do with it?
Simply to raise funds to assist families of nonviolent offenders whose kids needed college education payments and whose rent needed being paid.
My understanding is that the performers on this J6 choir were the rioters who are in prison.
I'm not aware of that, sir. I didn't have anything to do with the recording.
You weren't aware of who made the recording?
No, Senator.
That's interesting.
This hearing was supposed to be about accountability, about judgment, about whether power, once exercised, actually made the country safer or just made a political point. And Durbin comes in clearly prepared, clearly frustrated, and frankly sounding like someone who's tired of watching the same conversation get dodged over and over again. Now let's step back, because the significance of this exchange goes beyond Durbin and Patel. This is really about how January 6th is still being processed in American politics. On one side, you have lawmakers arguing that releasing violent offenders undermines public safety and disrespects law enforcement. On the other, you have a movement that increasingly treats these defendants as martyrs, political prisoners, or misunderstood patriots, often without distinguishing between nonviolent trespassers and people who assaulted cops. What Durbin is trying to force here is moral clarity. Not every case is the same. Not every pardon is equal. And when clemency is applied without discretion, it stops being about justice and starts being about loyalty. The most striking thing about this exchange isn't that Patel refuses to fully engage. It's that he can't engage without collapsing into deflection. Because to answer Durbin honestly, to say, yes, this made us less safe, and sit with that, would require acknowledging that January 6th wasn't just a protest gone wrong. It was a violent event with real victims and real consequences, including for law enforcement. And that's the part so many people in power still seem unwilling to say out loud. The broader takeaway here is uncomfortable, especially for those who claim to be the party of law and order. If you argue that police deserve absolute respect, that violence against officers is unforgivable, then you can't turn around and minimize, excuse, or mass pardon people who beat, sprayed, and crushed police officers at the Capitol. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to condemn violence in theory and reward it in practice. Clemency is one of the most powerful tools a president has. Used carefully, it can correct injustice, show mercy, and acknowledge rehabilitation. Used recklessly, it sends a message that loyalty matters more than harm, and politics matters more than public safety. Durbin wasn't asking for a partisan answer. He was asking for a human one. Are we safer when people with documented violent histories are released without distinction, without review, and without accountability? The silence, the pivots, and the evasions we saw in this hearing speak louder than any yes or no ever could. And that's why this exchange matters. Because it shows that nearly 5 years after January 6th, we're still not having an honest conversation about what happened, who was responsible, and what justice actually looks like. Until we do, these hearings will keep ending the same way: unanswered questions, unresolved accountability, and a public left to wonder whether anyone in power is really willing to tell the truth. If you found this breakdown useful, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe blanket clemency made the country safer, or did it cross a line? And if you want more deep dive commentary like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and stick around.